Okay. Uh, so, is anybody having any kind of problems following the course or maneuvering the course or anything like that?
No.
Well, I'm proud of myself. As bad as I am at Zoom, I think I did a pretty good job setting the course up.
Hmm.
Y'all didn't have any problems getting to different links or any of the readings or anything like that?
No, everything is okay.
I'm sorry?
Everything is okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good job. Okay, now, so I don't see why there's any point in me coming in here every week and just explaining to you what the book says. That doesn't make sense. So that's why we're not, but of course, if you need help, email me and set up a personal Zoom. I'm here to help you, okay? Now, what we want to talk about tonight, I want to talk about, you already know this, but you may not know that you know it, okay? And what it is it's the elements of fiction. And for example, if we go to the movies tonight and you, for example, Liz might say, boy, that ending really sucked. Well, we're not going to sit there and talk about the whole movie. And we're not going to sit there and talk about characterization. We're going to talk about why the ending did or didn't suck, right? And we're going to say, yeah, it was because he did this or he did that. So you kind of already know how to do this. But the way we do it when we analyze literature, and in order to write a good short story, it helps to learn how to read one well. And for this class, I like to break it up into these elements so that when you're writing your story, you can pay attention to what element you're developing properly or that might need a little bit more developing, okay? So I'm going to give you the elements for now, and if y'all have any you'd like to throw out there, by all means do it, okay? Now, on the discussion board assignment, have all of y'all looked at it already?
Yes.
Okay. For example, it doesn't matter what story you use for what element. How could that be? Doesn't it? I mean, to a beginning writer, it might seem like there's a right or wrong answer. Like, oh no, you didn't use Tan Fondo the Great for characterization. How could you do mix and match? How could you do plot for any other point of view? How come that works?
Well, because
each
that's
story
important.
has all the elements.
Right.
Yes. I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Stacy? And
Same thing. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all in there.
yeah. So you're just focusing on what you're going to focus on. Okay. So y'all got that. Okay. So the main ones for this class is usually they'll divide up stories. A lot of times people divide up stories into two main categories, and they'll be either character driven or plot driven. Now, for a literary story, which is mostly what we're going to be writing in here, which is not really the kind of stories, interestingly enough, the good stuff doesn't sell, right? So usually the literary fiction is character driven. The character moves the plot forward. If it's some sort of an action, adventure, Arnold Schwarzenegger film, it's usually plot driven, okay? And because the plot is moving the characters forward. Now, in here, we're going to be writing really, really subtle stories. So usually the character is going to be moving the plot forward, okay? So let's kind of come up with some elements. Let's say the main one of the main ones would be plot. You can't have a story without plot, right? Even if it's subtle, something's got to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things you could do if you're having trouble is you can ask yourself, what does my character want and why can't he have it? Okay? What do they want and why can't they have it? Get your character up a tree and throw rocks at them, okay? So you don't want your character just to get what they want real fast, or that's not a story. You know, oh, my character wanted to get married, but her boyfriend broke up with her, the end. No, you want to have a lot of throw rocks at them, make something really bad happen. She met somebody else. Oh no, then he broke up with her. Now she really met the love of her life. Oh no, then she had to move. You know, so have some things happen. So then another thing that you're going to have, especially for this class, I just told you the two elements that they're mostly divided up into. And what was that other one? It was plot and character. Very good. So character driven is usually more subtle, you know, where maybe something the character's doing is moving the plot forward. Okay. Another element is setting. Now, people have often told me, oh, I can always tell your stories take place in a small Texas town, but I don't know how. I don't put in there, in so-and-so Texas, it just comes out, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the setting's important, you might want to mention it outright or figure out some way where we would just know it. Most good stories could take place anywhere. Now, On the Rainy River couldn't take place anywhere by O'Brien. You probably haven't got to, but as he's thinking about getting off the boat and trying to get and going to Canada to escape going to the Vietnam War, okay? But for example, Tanfondo the Great could take place anywhere. Okay, Shiloh couldn't, because that's part of the point, is that it takes place at a battleground. Okay, so setting is a big deal, but you don't want to make this big announcement out of it, okay? Another one is point of view. Now, beginning writers always make this mistake, and you will make it. Usually you've been taught that there's several types of point of view. Omniscient, which means it's godlike, all-knowing, or limited, where it's only one person's point of view. Now, with the omniscient, you can still first person or third person, okay? You've got either omniscient or limited omniscient. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Omniscient or limited omniscient. So obviously, if it's a first person story, is it omniscient? Is it going to be told from more than one character's point of view? No, because it's told by the eye. Mm-hmm. Trust me, and students always think they can do it, but I'm teaching this class as though you were a beginning writer. Trust me, even very good writers, most stories are third person, one point of view. You want to do third person, past tense, one point of view. Now, why do you think I'm giving you that advice to use one point of view? Why not jump on over here into Susie's head? And now I'm over here in Bob's head. They do it all the time in novels. Why not? Why can't you do it?
To be concentrated on the story itself and not take it from different point of views, just one point of view in order to be specific?
Yes, because one point of view is going to create that focus, right? And then make it more specific.
Yes.
And you don't have room in a short story, get in and get out. You don't have room to develop, whose story is this? And usually that's the point of view story. Who changes in the story? Who learns something in the story? Some of them, it's a little bit more difficult. For example, Tanfondo the Great. Obviously, whose story is that?
No.
His, obviously. Shiloh's a little bit more difficult. It's his story because it's written from his point of view. But I could make a good case almost that it's her story, even though it's told. It doesn't feel like it's told from his point of view sometimes. It feels like it's her point of view, doesn't it?
Yes.
See? It's more subtle. Do you see how that's a little bit more subtle? In fact, that's a story that I've taught that story many times, and I can see the light bulbs go off like y'all thought, wow, I never thought about that. Because it seems so much like it's her story, and it could be her story. Remember, in literature, right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong. That's why short stories are very difficult to grade. If you want to argue that it's her short story and her story, argue it. Just make a good case for it. Just say it's Norma Ray's story, and here's why. Or it's her husband's story, and here's why. Usually, the point of view character it's that person's story. They're the main character and it's that person's, because I can't read somebody else's mind. I can't read your mind and see what you thought about something. Okay, so we're going to put down point of view. So here again, for beginning writers, what's the best way you want to, and you're going to slip and accidentally go into another point of view, probably. It just happens, you don't notice it. And, unless you just obviously haven't read any of the assignments and you're just all over the place, I'm not going to count off. You made a mistake, big deal. Did you overall get point of view correct or not? That's what I'm looking for. So once again, review. How many points of view do you want to use?
One.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I would avoid the first person. It's hard to write because your narrator and you've got your narrator is your character, so you've got to juggle both of those. It looks easy, but it's not. Okay. What are some other of the major one is not really one that you use, not a technique. What is a technique? Characterization is a technique. Setting is a technique. Point of view is a technique. Theme is really what you do with all these techniques. You take these recipes, if you will, these ingredients for a recipe, and you make a theme out of them. And usually on your first draft, you might not know what your theme is, but it'll start to evolve. Your theme will start to evolve. And then on your second or third draft, you can start saying, oh, now that I've realized kind of what my theme is, I can go back in there and mold it and shape it and develop it a little bit. It's sort of like the little boy drawing a picture. He's sitting on the floor drawing a picture and his mother comes by and says, what are you drawing? And he says, I don't know, I'm not finished yet. A good short story evolves. I had assigned the one story that has the story in it about the wig. Have y'all had a chance to read that one yet? I think it's What Makes a Great Short Story Great.
No, not yet.
It may not have been up yet but it's in with the short stories. Catch up with the readings, okay? Because the readings online, I'm not bragging, but I'm giving you 30 years of experience. I picked those articles out for a reason. That way you don't have to go cipher through them all. But what makes a good story, not what makes a good story great, the one of what makes a story work is the one that talks about, it has the wig in there and it talks about why you just can't go change the ending of a story. And what he says is the reason you can't just go change the ending of a story is because your story has built all the way to that ending. And you can't just all of a sudden go, wait a minute, I'm going to change it. No, it has to evolve to that. So I'm going to give you an example of that. I was writing a short story once about a woman who was going to go get a divorce. And I've been working on this story in my head for months. And I thought, in my mind, the story was going to be when she got to the courthouse, she was going to decide she didn't want the divorce. And she was going to say, no, I don't want the divorce. And all the time, the lawyer had told her, just say yes to everything I say. Just say yes to everything I say. And so I thought, oh, it would be so interesting if she, there at the very end, and she said no. But actually, when I got to it, that ending didn't work. It wasn't her personality. She cared about what people thought. And it made a much better story. If I'd have written it where she would have said, no, I don't want the divorce, we've got a story about a lady who almost got a divorce. There's not really a whole lot of depth to that. But if I change the ending and let the story go where it's wanting to go, which is her saying yes and her getting the divorce, the reader's just sick when she walks out that door. You're thinking, oh no, her husband clearly doesn't want the divorce. She doesn't want the divorce. So it raises a good question. Why didn't she do it? Good literature often raises questions. It doesn't necessarily answer them. It raises them. Okay? Do you see how it's a much richer story by making it a story about where she goes ahead and gets the divorce? Is everybody clear on that? Or another example I like to give, I'm going to talk about this some when we talk about layering your fiction. So I'll save some of this for that theme. But, you know, a story, a well-written story is rarely about what it appears to be about. Rarely. Because it's about one thing on the surface, but it's like Hemingway said, 8/10 of a story takes place beneath the surface.
Mhm.
That story is not about somebody going to get a divorce. You got me? That's just not, that's not what it's about. You know, when you go see a really good movie and somebody says what's it about, and it's real hard for you to explain.
Yes.
That's because it was really good and you just can't. It was about, I always like to say it's about love and death and the human heart, and things aren't what they appear. If you're ever in a fiction class and the professor asks you what the theme is and you don't know, just say things aren't what they appear. Okay. So, like I said, that if you write a story about a dead cat, maybe there's a situation where the wife doesn't know whether to tell the husband the cat's died. That's not a story about a dead cat.
Mhm.
Okay? So ask yourself, what's this story really about? It's such a delicate balance, though, because if you tell too much, you beat us over the head. You know.
Mhm.
So let's go through these stories, and one of the things you could do if you're analyzing a story is you could say plot, character, setting, and point of view is used to develop this theme. Okay. If y'all have already written the discussion, I was reviewing over some of them, and some of them, have some of y'all done it already?
Yes.
Some of y'all, you might want to go back and make sure that you didn't just give it, that you stuck to the element in each paragraph, and that you just didn't tell us, you know what I'm saying, that you didn't. I noticed that on some of them, y'all can't read them all, I can. I noticed that some of them, so I don't even know if they're y'all's or not. Some of them, some people had just given a little report, and I thought, no, this isn't. You're supposed to stick only with plot. Y'all get that? Okay. So, in my mind, some of these just beg. If you had to pick one story for character, in my mind, one just begs to be told about character that we've read so far in class. But I'm not interested in what I have to say. I want to know what y'all would pick. There's 6 of y'all. Why don't each one of y'all pick one?
Pandolfo
Yeah.
for character was a compelling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was thinking the same thing. That just begs to be character, because he is definitely pulling that story forward. It'd be a difference if you stuck a different character at that birthday party, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, what about plot? No, I'm sorry, y'all. This is y'all's time. Who else?
I believe the other Miller is about the plot.
I was thinking, boy, y'all think like me. And why? Very good, very good. Why would you say that's plot? Why would you use that for plot?
I believe the author delayed the fact of his mother's death, and all the time he thinks that he was not the Miller whose mother was dead, until almost the very end, when they stop with the two officers with him at the Gypsy's woman to read their future. He suddenly asked himself, when he shut his eyes in the car, like when he thinking about the future, he said, what if really his mother is the one who did?
Very good, excellent. And this shouldn't work. Those twisted endings like that, they shouldn't work, but Tobias Wolff gets away with it. Don't try this at home. Beginner writers shouldn't try this, because it's got that sort of, I mean, the reader sees it come from the beginning. You know it's going to be his mother, right?
Yes.
But real subtly, it's his story, because he does change at the end. He kind of has a little change there. It's more, this isn't a story about a man whose mother dies and he thinks it's somebody else. It's really a story about, he learns something about himself, doesn't he? that
Mhm.
perhaps things aren't as mapped out quite as clearly as we think they might be.
Mm.
You got to, it would be helpful if you want to be a writer to learn how to start reading these stories for a deeper meaning. And I read that story about 5 times before it hit me that that's another meaning for that is he does learn something. He kind of learns that things just aren't as predictable and as planned out as he thinks they are, or something kind of like that. Sometimes the themes aren't real easy to articulate, especially the more difficult they are. Life isn't easy to articulate. Did you have a good time at your date? It's hard to explain, right?
Right.
Life. But very good answer. I was thinking the same one for plot. Who else? Y'all are starting to think like me. It should scare you.
I feel like the swimmer and style kind of go together.
Mhm.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Because of like all of the very different words, like sailing words and like adventure novel words, when it's really just a guy going to other people's houses.
You know, that's an excellent point. That story kind of nothing really happens, but it's the way it's told that makes that story.
Mm.
It's the way it's told, the style. It
Mm.
seems very Updike-y to me. I keep wanting to give that story to Updike for some reason, but John Cheever is one of those rare writers that made it more as a short story writer than a novelist. They're very rare. Raymond Carver, there's only a handful of them, but definitely style, yes. You can tell that's written from a very mature writer, can't you?
Mm. Mhm.
The way he knows how to use language, right?
Mhm.
All right, what else? Who else? Don't be scared. I
Shiloh,
won't throw you out of the meeting.
for Shiloh, you could use setting.
Yes, very good. It's so funny. I was going to make a joke. I won't throw you out of the meeting. I don't know how. Yes. And why is the setting so important in Shiloh?
Because at the end, when they go to the Shiloh battlefield, he makes the connection that that's where like the battle took place and where his wife's parents had their honeymoon, and then where he and his wife eventually like broke up.
Yeah.
Everything kind of came in full circle.
So it ends up having more of a more significance than we think at the beginning. Because the first time I read it, I thought, oh God, don't do this to us. But so she gets away with it. She gets away with it. It's written by a woman, but a man's point of view.
Mm.
So she does get away with it.
Mm.
And here again, the stories I picked for y'all, I saved y'all a bunch of money by putting these online for y'all. So
Mm.
try to print them up and read them. The reading's not getting too much. It looks like a lot on the syllabus, but it's really not, because I like to just sit through that little shapely fiction and go through the little words. I'm a geek, I guess.
Mm.
Okay, one more. There's one more. Or two more. Who has everybody but one?
Updates,
Yeah.
updates, AMP.
Okay, D'Angelo, have you gone yet? Yeah. What do you think?
Hold on.
I should have asked y'all, print the stories up and then bring them with us to the discussions. I should have reminded you. Did you get a chance to read the AMP?
Yes.
Okay, which one would you put that under?
For A and P,
Yeah,
I'll do characters.
I probably would too. Or point of view, or because that couldn't be told from anybody else's point of view. And you know, Shiloh, if it were told from Leroy's from her point of view, we might get a completely different story. If you do a good job on your point of view, you would get a very different story if you told it from the point of view. Now, when I say a good story evolves, I know that y'all only have 6 weeks in here. So the main thing I'm going to be grading you on, is the grammar. And when y'all did the little 1 page, I hope y'all paid attention to like the comma and how they did the dialogue and all of that. But if you, how many of y'all really want to be a writer? And I won't be offended. I just want to know. Or how many of y'all are just taking it just kind of because you need it for the EA or something like that?
I want to learn how to do. Oh,
No, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
I just want to learn how like the elements of storytelling, because like I want to make graphic novels. So I
Okay.
figured there would be a better use case for this class than RWS.
Okay. Yeah, good. You'll learn. I'm not letting, do y'all kind of see why I'm not letting y'all write the, when I'm having y'all stick to the realistic?
Yes.
It's too easy with beginning writers, a lot of times they think, oh no, I can't think of anything to happen. I'll have a giant, although Kafka got away with it quite well, a giant cockroach, you know, that famous, the Metamorphosis. One day Gregor something woke up and discovered that he was a cockroach. Well, we're not Kafka, but so it can happen, but usually beginning writers, they use it as a crutch. Oh no, I can't think of anything to happen. I'll have giant snowballs fall out of the sky in the middle of summer or something, you know. It doesn't work, okay? Now, let me warn you. Whenever you're writing your story, I probably wouldn't consciously go through all of these elements of fiction. Okay, I'm not here to make you to test, oh, did she use all these elements? I don't want you to be thinking of a great story and then say, oh no, Dr. Champion told us not to do that. If your story's wanting to do that, do it. And you know what you're doing, and you know you're breaking the rule, do it. Say, bite me, Dr. Champion, I need to do it this way, okay? Because if you consciously try to do all of this, I think you're just gonna mess up your story. I think especially for the first draft, rule number 1, get something on the frigging paper. Go home and write, well, you're home. Write this on a little note. Get something on the frigging paper. Put Post-it notes all over your house. Get something on the frigging paper. Because you can always go back and edit it later, okay? And try not to think about it too much when you're writing that first draft. Because most likely it's gonna change, okay?
I have a question about the word count of the story. Yeah, can you please just make it sure how many words we have?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I redid my whole course this semester for Canvas, and I think I accidentally put 20 pages on one and 18 on another or something like that. Of course, these days we should go by word count. You should write about 20 pages for both of them, not each.
Okay.
But when your story's finished, your story's finished. And if you need to go a little over, you need to go a little over. But very many of you can write a good story in 4 or 5 pages, because that's hard to do. It's hard to do. Okay. And I know when it was just waited till the last night and didn't have time. I can see that, but try not to worry too much about page length. When your story's done, it's done.
So about 10 pages.
On the other hand, if you turn in 2 3-page short stories, I'm going to get a little suspicious.
Professor Champion, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think you answered it, but I appreciate the limit of trying to write it in a third person. but I gather from your comments that if there's a story demanding to come out in first and there's no getting around it, that would be okay.
If it just wants to be told in the first, if you're hearing it in your head in the first, and
Yeah.
it just, then it needs to be in the first.
Okay, because I have a few
Yeah.
drafts like that and they don't. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
listening. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah. I'm glad I clarified that.
Thank you.
You're the boss of your story, not me.
Mm.
And, you know, clearly you know the rule. So you know the rule before you break it.
Right.
But that's interesting that you said that, because it's interesting. You just know somehow.
Mm.
Like somehow you just know whether it needs to be in the first person or the third person. And people ask me how you know, and I just don't know.
Right.
So my gut feeling is that your story needs to be in the first.
Okay.
And I'll see that. Don't worry about it. So if you made a mistake and it might have been better in the third, in my opinion, that it's very hard to grade.
Mhm.
I would say perhaps you should try this in the third and see what it looks like.
Mhm.
I wouldn't count off for that, because it's too big of a judgment call.
Okay.
That's why I think I'm so hard on the grammar in here, because I don't have anything else to grade you on. Except stories that just clearly aren't a story,
Mm.
or where they clearly just gave some twisted ending and didn't read the book and didn't. Yeah, Tobias Wolff gave a twisted ending, but he did it damn well. So good for Tobias Wolff.
Mm.
But yeah, you're hearing it, and every time you go to put it in the third, it's messing it up, right?
Mhm. Mm.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you something about the rules of writing. I don't know if I have any musicians or any seamstresses in here.
Mm.
I'm a seamstress. So when you take that pattern, that's a suggested way to make the skirt or whatever. A really good seamstress is going to take that and make it her own. You know, a really good musician is going to take that sheet music and make that song his or her own.
Mm.
So you're going to take these rules and make this story your own,
Mhm.
which doesn't mean you go around breaking the rules just to show how clever you are. And I don't think you're going to do that, because I can just tell.
Mm.
I've been doing this a while.
Mm.
I've been doing this a while, so. And it's hard to answer. It's hard to help a student with a story. It really is, because it's not my story. It's not the way I would write it or tell it, you know? So it,
Mm.
So, Professor, I have a question about the short story or the writing of story in general. What is the difference between writing a real fiction story and a fiction story? What is the
I
difference?
mean, a real, what
I
do you
mean,
mean?
using everyday life as a story, but with a fiction, with
Oh,
something fictional.
someone once asked Raymond Carver, are your stories true? And he said, all of my stories happened, but none of them happened.
Mm.
So don't worry about whether it's true or not. All good fiction comes from some kernel of truth, and you're telling a truth. You're telling some kind of a conceptual truth about life, whether it really happened or not, hopefully. So don't worry about whether it really happened or not, or whether it's, don't worry about it.
Yes, this is my question actually.
Good question.
Professor,
But most good fiction comes from some little grain of truth, or something that, you know, you find yourself saying, that'd make a good story, okay? But that doesn't mean you have to tell it exactly how it happened.
Mhm.
Sacrifice the truth. Never sacrifice a good short story for the truth. You know, write what would make the best short story, regardless of how it really happened, okay?
Professor, do you always begin a story knowing, even if it changes, like having an idea of where it will
I
end?
do.
Yeah.
Well, and I know y'all don't have time to do this, but everybody has their own way of doing it. I sit around and I think about a short story for about 2 months before I ever sit down and write it.
Mhm.
And I thought, and so I almost always get that first draft down on one setting. And it's gross. I might not even take a bath for 2 days or anything because all I'm thinking about is that short story, you know, and, but I've been thinking about it for 2 months.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I almost always have an idea where it's going but it changes a lot.
Mhm.
lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, it changes a lot. And then I start knowing where it needs to add something and where I need to take something out. And for example, I wrote this short story about these 2 girls who were working at the state fair and they were poor and they were working. And I needed something. Then after I wrote it, I realized I needed the reader to see what a normal children were doing at the state fair. I needed a foil,
Mhm.
you know, so I showed these little kids. I showed the father telling one of the kids, look at big text. And then I showed the big sister, look at the little sister and say, look at big text. It was real subtle though, but I needed the reader to see, you know,
Mhm.
and kind of stuff that other people.
Mhm.
But it was only after I got something on the paper that I saw that. A good short story is going to go through many, many drafts, many. But I generally do know. I say a story evolves as you write it. Generally, I do know where it's going to go. But my point is that as you're writing it, it may take you to a different direction.
Mhm.
Professor.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Judith Chambers.
Hi, Judith.
Hi, I'm so sorry for being late.
Don't worry about it.
And talking about that, screenplays, you know, when we write a screenplay, we have so many drafts that we say that the last draft is the actual movie because you're constantly changing it and
Yes.
this works, you know, stuff like that. I had a question for you.
Let me make a sidebar to that comment. Because people frequently say, when are you going to be finished with your novel? Never.
Never.
So it's kind of like that. Yeah. But go ahead with your question. Yes.
Exactly. You know, the same thing like you know, the actors ask us, you know, when are you going to be done with the screenplay? Never.
Yeah. Never.
When we have a movie and it's edited,
You
then
can always change something. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So you get it. You get it. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for you. It's you know, I'm a writer. So I had one of my professors say, a writer writes. And sometimes, you know, as much as I can't type that much for a long time, sometimes I do type because I have so many ideas in my head. You know, I do type. You're talking that you want us to do a paragraph, is it? Of each of the stories and what are the elements of fiction, like for instance, you know, I'm gonna write a character for Gandolfo the Great, but I want to write a little bit about the meaning of the table and how his character changes because he didn't get his table, or do you just want us to say, you know, Gandolfo the Great, his character, he transforms into a clown, and then, you know, throughout the story, he is constantly changing, you know, his characterization depending on the setting that he's in. Like when he meets his friends, you know, the kids that are picking on him. And then, well, at the beginning, he is so sad because he made all this stuff in his head that he was gonna ask this girl to marry him, and he's carrying the 5-tier cake thinking that he's gonna celebrate, and then that goes, you know, you know, south, so that doesn't happen, and then he changes from there, you know.
Okay, this is a great question. We touched on it a little bit earlier. Right, and we used Gandolfo the Great, so it's funny that you had used that. Whenever you're talking about him as your example for character, only talk about character. So you're right, because his character does change, but obviously you have to talk about other stuff because that's what's making his character. You're on the right track.
Okay,
The things that you're talking about are related to his character and what makes his character develop and evolve. So that's perfect. just so long as you're not out talking about, oh, and it has a good plot too. I'm gonna go, what?
No.
Saying each
Yeah.
story, each element has a different, one element per story.
Okay, yeah, well, and then it's okay if we write a little bit more than what you're saying here in the directions.
Uh,
You say that you want us to write let's say half a
One or two.
paragraph.
Oh, yeah, I just put that down. One thing, and I need to email everybody this. I'm not really, when you're done, you're done. I'm not really worried about how long it takes you. And if you need more time, more words, take them.
Thank you.
Don't
Thank
want, because if you just do it because you're, and not y'all, obviously y'all are here. The people who need to hear this aren't here. If you don't care enough to really write it well, your grade will come up in some other way. I don't need to worry about length.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
You know
because
what I'm saying?
yeah, because I have.
Who just don't care about their work, and that's why they're only writing 3 sentences. It'll be well done anyway. So
Yeah, no, because I
don't worry. And I was telling them about the stories too. If it needs, both of your short stories should be around 20, but if they're not, that it's not that big a deal.
thank you so
I
much.
just have to give you some kind of guideline.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, because I had one professor who penalized me because I was supposed to write 2 pages and I wrote 3, and then she said no.
I would never do that.
Thank you very much. Thank
Now, what I might do is say this needs to be tightened and edited, because if it needs to be 3 pages, it needs to be 3 pages.
you. And it probably won't be 3 pages, but it will be longer than half a paragraph.
That's fine.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
put that because I didn't want to scare people away that they had to write too much.
Okay. Okay.
Don't worry. Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
You're
Thank
fine.
you so much.
You're
Thank
fine.
you.
And here again, it's not the matter of page number. It's a matter of did it need it or not.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me, Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
It's about the story of everyday use. Actually, I'm confused between the point of view and the style of the story. So what can you say about the fictional element that been used?
Okay, whose point of view is the story? This is a tricky one. Whose point of view?
It was the mother's point of view,
Right.
because she
right.
was the one who's speaking and involved in the story. She is the main character
Right.
and the narrator of the story.
Right. Right. But what your point is that you would argue that it's not really her story then?
No. I mean, I chose the point of view is the fictional element that has been used in this story, but I'm not sure. But it seems to me,
the fiction, listen, every one of the stories have every one of the elements.
yeah.
I'm just asking you to pick one of the elements and elaborate on it.
Oh, okay.
You following me?
Yes, I'm following you.
Yeah, and that would have been a great choice for point of view.
Yes.
I didn't even think about it until you said that, because I was thinking more about plot, but that would be because it's a tricky one on point of view.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, but all of the stories have all of the elements.
So any one of the elements can fit in the story. In any
Exactly.
story.
It's just a matter of how you interpret it.
Yes.
It doesn't have to even be the strongest one. It can just be the one that you want to do for whatever reason.
Good.
Like before you got here, Judith, we were talking about how Pandolfo just begs to be character, because that would be completely different if it were a different character.
Yes.
And everyday use would be a completely different story if it were told from one of the girls' point of view.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like a girl from college would say, my family just doesn't understand me.
Exactly. They're used to living in these conditions, and so it was difficult for me to, behave in a way appropriate to that, the girl from, and if it was from the girl with the problems point of view, who would say, well, I'm used to being treated like this, so I'm trying to make her like me more and stuff.
Exactly.
Like
exactly, exactly. It sounds like y'all got a good grip on this all.
I
So here
love
again,
Mm.
they all have the elements. It's just a matter of how do you want to interpret it.
Uh,
And if you're going to talk about plot on one of them, talk about only plot.
Mhm.
Now you might have to get us there by saying when he turns the table or this or
Mhm.
that's a great story, isn't it?
It is. All of them. I say I'm gonna read one. I read all of them.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
love it.
I've spent 30 years and I tried to pick out stories that y'all would learn from and that were interesting. So I picked these stories for a reason.
Oh, okay. Oh, they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
I'm glad you're enjoying them. I'm
Yeah.
so glad.
They,
And the instructional ones, I had accidentally not published them until a couple days ago. So print those up and read them because there are a lot of good readings. It saved you a lot of time of having to go filter through and find them. I've already done the work for you.
yes,
Like
yes, yes.
what makes a good story work? What makes a story work? Why can't you just go change the end of a story? I
Right.
love this essay. I really want y'all to read it.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna print all the stories. Yeah.
And
And
read them. Yeah.
that way I also like to highlight, the parts.
Yes.
So that.
I put them online to save y'all money, but I can't make y'all, but I beg y'all to print them out because you just can't get what you need to get out of it online. You just can't.
No.
And it saves you so much money because the book that had these in there was going to be like $100.
Wow. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody else, did you want to stay after the meeting for a minute, Judy?
Yes, yes, please. If it's
Okay.
Professor.
Did anybody else have any questions or comments or testimonies?
No, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
For me.
Do you have any tips or suggestions for like knowing how to start your story or for like writing prompts or anything like that? Or just for getting ideas?
Well, one way you might get an idea is think of a time when you had to make a choice or when somebody you knew had to make a choice, because that by default is going to give you some conflict. Or think of a time when you felt kind of place. A choice, out of place. Think of a time when you thought something was one way, but it was really a different way. Those might help you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Professor Champion.
Oh, thank y'all. I hope y'all got something out of this.
Oh, yes, very much.
Good, good. Thank you. Thank y'all for coming and listening.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet y'all. I miss y'all. I'd rather have y'all in the classroom.
I know.
Oh, yeah. That would have been really, really neat.
Yeah, yeah.
We will have fun. So we'll make the best out of this situation.
You know, what are you gonna do? Well, if you don't have any questions or comments, I'm gonna stay here because I think Judith had wanted to talk to me privately. And if any of y'all ever want to have a private consultation, just email me and I can set up a Zoom. I'll learn how to do this Zoom. The irony is I was so nervous I messed it up. Oh Lord.
Okay, no.
Thanks,
Nice
Professor.
to meet you guys.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming to the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm doing it.